What's up, guys? Nick here, Bear Brothers Powerlifting from Mettle Performance Training Center in Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm here with world champion, IPF powerlifter, world-renowned IPF powerlifting coach, and owner of Reactive Training Systems. Mike, thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
And for those of you guys who don't know Mike, he's a really humble guy. So I'll just go ahead and say it. He's a badass. He's a big deal. So we really appreciate you being here. It's huge for Bear Brothers, so we're really excited about it.
My pleasure. It's always fun to sit down and chat about lifting weights.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So first thing, like, can you just explain Reactive Training Systems? Like, what is it? How did it start?
Yeah. So when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, and I had this powerlifting team, right? And when I joined, there were like 2 other members, and then the next season, they didn't want to powerlift anymore, so it's just me.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, that's not cool. So I started recruiting a bunch of other people, and the team started to grow. But now I've got all these guys, and they're junior to me, you know, and they're kind of looking to me to give them some advice and coach them, which I was happy to do, you know. So I start coaching these guys, and I start learning more about training, and I keep hearing this stuff come up like, you got to learn how to listen to your body, you know. And I thought, well, that's cool, but what the heck does that mean? You know, well, nobody can teach you how to do it. You just got to figure it out, and it takes you 10 years to figure it out. Well, that's not real helpful, you know. So I start kind of learning how to do this myself, and I start observing, like, what am I learning? What am I doing when I start to figure this stuff out? And start writing down these processes and teaching it to my guys, you know. And over the years, like, we start to learn what that process looks like. What does it mean to listen to your body, and how do you do it, you know? So as I start learning this stuff and writing it down, I start writing a lot, you know. My original intent was, hopefully I can write a series of articles and get it published in Powerlifting USA, which was kind of the powerlifting outlet at the time. And it kind of grew and grew, and eventually it turned into what I thought, like, hey, this is really more like a book.
Yeah.
Right? So then self-published the book, you know, and it's the Reactive Training Manual, and you can still get it and everything. And that's kind of the foundation of what RTS is. It's a system of, I tell people it's like a scope on a rifle, you know. It doesn't change the base system that you put it with. It just lets you use it more effectively, you know. It lets you use a tool a little bit more precisely, and you can pair it with any sort of training system, and it helps you employ that training system more effectively because it individualizes it to you. It helps you to learn how to listen to your own body.
So you're using this concept of rated perceived exertion, RPE. That's like, did you start this, or like you popularized this idea with Reactive Training System?
I could probably take credit for popularizing it a bit.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't invent it. It's been around for a long time in the endurance world. I'm not aware of anybody who's done it before in strength training, but, you know, I read about it in super training is where, you know, again, back then, like, that was the thing that everybody's got to read super training, and it's impossible, so don't try it. But one of the things that I learned from kind of studying the book was about RPE, and I thought, well, that's cool. I wonder if you can apply that to strength training. And, well, scale of 1 to 10, people were talking a lot at the time about, you know, leaving a rep in the tank and stuff like that. So that's kind of how the genesis of the RPE chart started, you know. So that's how I developed my RPE chart, and the one that I think is pretty common to see in powerlifting these days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you start lifting? Like, how old were you, and why did you start?
So I was 12 when I first started lifting. I was super interested in it for a long time, and I was participating in some sports, you know, played football and things like that, but they had a weightlifting club in my junior high school, which met like once a month or every other month even, like, it not very frequently, but it was an introduction into go into a weight room and lift weights, which I thought was amazing, you know. And I really wanted to do it more, you know, but we didn't have access to any equipment or anything like that. And I remember when I was a kid about that age, you know, I've got a younger brother who's 18 months younger than me. And I remember we had an aluminum baseball bat, and we would use that like a barbell and do like manual resistance exercises, you know, and stuff like that.
So like when you started lifting when you were 12, like were you actually squatting and benching and deadlifting like powerlifting style, or were you just like I started working out when I was 14, but like not like this. Like it was an embarrassment. Like I maybe worked chest. I didn't work legs for sure until I like graduated high school. But like, so what style of training were you doing?
I definitely did squats. I didn't do them well, but I did them. And I did benching as well. I didn't really do much deadlifting. I attempted to do power cleans, you know, especially like a little bit later on when I got into 9th grade and started lifting with the high school football team and stuff like that. You know, I definitely started doing power cleans.
You kind of learn from your mistakes, eh? Like,
it
starts off dirty, you just progress. You like, I think about all the mistakes I made and I learned from them though. Like, they're important in a way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. You gotta learn from these things.
So what are your best lifts of all time, like raw, equipped, and what's your best total, if you kind of have an idea?
Sure. So my best raw squat is 785 pounds.
Holy shit.
My best equipped squat is 903. My best raw bench is 480. My best equipped bench is 633. That was a good day. Yeah. And my best deadlift, which I've never really competed that much in a suit, so my best raw deadlift is 843. Best raw total is like right around 2100, and my best equipped total is 2342. That's all been around the same body weight, but in my equipped days it was 125 kilo weight class, and then they changed the weight classes, and now I'm 120 kilos.
So you weigh about like 264 pounds.
Yeah. So even when it was 125 kilos, so 275 pounds, I was never really a full 275. I was 268 or something like that.
So do you think you're better equipped or better raw? Like,
oh, good question. I mean, I want to be better raw, but I've definitely had better competitive results in my equipped career. But I don't know. I think early on I kind of had some mistakes in my high-level raw competitions, and then since then it's just gotten so competitive. Like the raw powerlifting scene nowadays is unreal. Like, where did these guys come from? You know,
I think amazing. It's just a growing sport, right?
Oh yeah, and it's so cool to see. And like, it's not just like people coming out of the woodwork, although that does happen too, but like just the average performances are so much better than they used to be. Like a 400 Wilks these days is, I mean, it's good, but it's not what it used to be. Like it used to be like if you had a 400 Wilks, then you were probably placing at nationals. If not, you know, in some of the weaker weight classes, you were going to win at nationals. You know, like you were top shelf. Now you're like middle of the pack. You know, like
what's your best Wilks in competition?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really like I never even look at the Wilks. Maybe it's just because my Wilks isn't that great. But like
I know that raw I've been like 520. I want to say. I hope I'm not wrong on that, but somewhere in that range. You know.
Okay. So I think I already know the answer to this, but do you think using RPE for training, rated perceived exertion, is more effective than using percentages when training in powerlifting?
Well, I mean, so that's kind of the thing that I advocate. So, of course, yeah, I think so. But I would go a step further and say that they're all tools, and like any tool, it's got its appropriate uses and it's got its inappropriate uses. And there's times when, like we talked about today, we got to put the right weight on the bar. Whatever that is, we got to put the right weight on the bar. There's times when using RPE is going to get you that right weight better, and then there's times when a percentage is going to get you the right weight better. You know, and it's all about the context of what are the strengths and weaknesses of each tool. You can use the right tool for the job. You know, a skilled practitioner, a skilled coach is going to be able to make those calls. And somebody who's not skilled is just going to, you know, use a hammer to solve every problem.
Well, and like I've never trained RP ever. I've only done percentages. So I think a big problem with that is that I get this number in my head that today I have to hit that no matter what the circumstances are. Like even if I feel like shit, like I have to do this, and that's not always a good thing.
Well, it's a give and take, right? Like because you don't want to go too far the other way either. And like, oh, every day that you have a hangnail, well, I guess I just won't train today.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a balance for sure. You know, and there's kind of that right mentality, I think, that you know, that strikes a balance between those things where you push it when you can, and then when when you do feel like you really legitimately feel like garbage, you're not just being lazy, then you throttle things back. You know?
Well, you gotta know the difference between like being lazy and like actually just things aren't going well that day. Right,
for sure. You know, and I think that's part of like the maturity of lifting a little bit too. You know, like if we kind of go back to the origins of RTS and think that a lot of it is about learning how to listen to your body, and oh, well, that's supposed to take 10 years. Well, we're trying to speed up that process. That doesn't mean that it'll necessarily happen in 0 years or something like that, but it'll just happen sooner. So it probably does take people some time to mature enough to really use it effectively as a tool.
Yeah.
But I think it's crazy that, you know, people that have been training for a long time would totally neglect it.
Well, that's something I've kind of got in my head. It's that I know I'm going to use RPE training eventually. Like I'll probably keep doing this because I'm relatively new to the sport, and like things are working right now. But I look at all like the really successful lifters at this gym, they all train RPE. Like none of them use percentages, what I've noticed.
Well, and I mean, there's definitely success stories on both sides of that, right? And there are people that have gotten to a really high level just by using percentages. And it's all about putting the right weight on the bar. But what everybody does and has done is make adjustments to their plan. Everybody, you know, every successful training system, you know, uses auto-regulation, uses these modifications. Maybe not necessarily RPE itself, but some way of making adjustments. So you have to do that. And if you don't do that, then, I mean, I'm sure that you could find an example of somebody who just stuck to the plan and that's all they ever did and they made it to a high level, but I think that's the exception, not the rule.
Okay, that makes sense. So I know this is a question that a lot of people are going to like because everybody wants to be a bodybuilder. So what are some of your most effective methods for hypertrophy in your drug-free lifters?
Yeah, so training volume is huge, right? So pushing more training volume that you can recover from is huge. So it's got to be past a certain effective threshold of intensity. So, I mean, these are like hypertrophy basics. I wouldn't be surprised if all your people are familiar with this already. So for me, I like to draw that line around 70%. It's probably actually a bit lower than that, but that makes sure that we're over the hypertrophy threshold. So if you train at 70%, maybe a little bit beyond that, and shove down a lot of training volume, then that's good for hypertrophy.
So are we talking like doing like 10 to 12 reps type thing per set, or splitting it up type thing?
You can, but I don't think that it matters that much how many reps per set that you're doing, but just that you're doing a lot of overall work. You know, now once you have that taken care of, that's not enough to make you grow in perpetuity, I don't think. One thing that I've found to be useful, now I haven't done enough like hypertrophy coaching to really say like this is the thing, but one thing that we found to be effective, kind of as a preparatory tool, we use myoreps, which is not my invention. It's a friend of mine, Borja Fagerli. He's a Norwegian coach. He's the one that I'm aware of that invented this concept. It's a sort of a rest-pause style of training. Also something similar, blood flow restriction training, stuff like that. We found it to be effective for like preparing someone for hypertrophy. And that's about all I can say with any sort of confidence. Now, my understanding of why is it effective is satellite cell activation. So that I'll just kind of leave it at that for now because I don't want to kind of go too far in the weeds, but satellite cell activation is a thing that's helpful in these preparatory stages. And think of it like priming the organism for hypertrophy in the later training blocks. You know, so you do this in the earlier stages, and then in the later stages you do kind of more traditional high volume hypertrophy work. and it works synergistically. That's one of my favorite
And
things.
are there like certain type of exercises, or are we just talking like bench, squat, deadlift, training lots of volume, or should they be doing all these little accessory things like bicep curls and pull-ups and all that stuff?
It depends
like
on
that?
what you want,
I guess
right?
depending on your goals, right?
Sure. If you're like a serious bodybuilder and you want to develop in that way, then yeah, you're going to have to do all those things, isolation work and stuff like that. But if that's not your thing and you're just trying to add some hypertrophy for powerlifting, then you can stick to more of the powerlifting muscle groups. I still wouldn't stick to exclusively just training the competition exercises. I would do some other things outside of that, but you can use these methods as something that will add hypertrophy to those desired muscles.
And do you think hypertrophy is gonna like help you in powerlifting?
Oh,
Or?
absolutely. Yeah. All things being equal, a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. There's a lot of other factors, and things are never totally equal, but there are times where you want to, grow the muscle a bit bigger, and that increases your overall strength potential for sure.
Yeah, okay. That's something I definitely think I lack since I started powerlifting is like, I used to be one of those guys, I'd go to the gym and I was hitting biceps for like 3 hours. Like, I can't remember the last time I worked arms, which is probably not really a good thing, but...
Well, it depends on who you ask, right?
So, why do you choose to compete drug-free?
I don't like the complexity of messing with stuff I don't understand.
Yeah.
To be totally candid about it, I got started in drug-free powerlifting, drug-free lifting in general because, I was a kid when I started.
Yeah.
Kids shouldn't mess with that stuff, just as a general rule. Now, since then, I've decided to stick with that because as I learn more about complexity, which the human body is an immensely complex organism, the responses that you get aren't always linearly tied to the inputs, So, like people inject with a certain hormone, well, that has secondary and tertiary consequences, These other hormones, compensate. So then they take a drug to deal with those side effects. Well, that has secondary and tertiary effects too. And it's not just the muscular system that's affected either. There is some research that indicates there are changes to brain size dependent on stuff like this. There are changes to bones, to other hormonal conditions, and all these different things. And I think that's just way more complexity than I want to deal with. I don't understand it all. I'm not sure anybody really understands it all. And I'm just going to leave well enough alone. So that's kind of where I sit with it.
Well, and the thing that I really like about powerlifting is I've noticed drug-free, the human body can do some crazy things. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like people who aren't that familiar with the sport, if you told them I squatted over 700 pounds, like, oh, that guy must be using drugs. But like, that's not the case. Once you actually see what the human body can do drug-free, it's like, it's incredible.
Well, and I would be lying if I said that wasn't part of it too, is that I'm stubborn. Like, I'm a stubborn person, just by nature. And so like I've kind of committed to this thing now, and I wouldn't want to admit defeat, and say, well, I couldn't figure out how to do it like I said I would, so I'm going to try it this other way. So I'm going to keep trying to get stronger in this way.
And you've accomplished things drug-free that people on drugs like want to accomplish.
Yeah, certainly in some cases. And it's an interesting question, and I don't pass any moral judgment on any of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So like if people want to use or don't want to use, like, whatever, that's up to them. But for me, like, this is what's driven my decisions for why I want to go about it this way. And it's whether or not that sort of thing resonates with other people or not, that's up to them.
Well, yeah, like for me, like I'm totally fine. Like if someone wants to do that, like it's not my body, right?
Right.
For me, it's more so like I just hope that people if they're competing in a drug-free federation, that they're actually drug-free, because it's just not fair. Like if you want to use drugs, like go to the federation that they're not drug testing. Right. Then it's just you just can't compete with.
And I hear some people that like to be cultural apologists, you know, for other. So where we see problems with this a lot of times, not only, but if we're having a conversation about, you know, someone got banned from this country or someone got banned from that country, you'll hear people that will occasionally be a cultural apologist and say that, oh well, in that country, in that culture, they don't view it as cheating, and I don't see how that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Like, there are rules. You do something against those rules, like directly and absolutely in contradiction to those rules. There's no way to view that as anything other than cheating. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh well, in that culture, it's not considered cheating. Like, well, they have logic in that culture. There are smart people from that culture. Like, I'm pretty sure. Like, you can. People in a lot of different cultures, even my culture, delude themselves sometimes, you know, like that's just a thing that humans do.
Well, and we're all competing together, right?
Sure.
Like we're competing with people from other countries too, right? So we should all follow the same thing, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Like, here's the agreed upon set of rules. We're going to follow those rules, you know? I don't think there's much room for deliberation on that. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you feel the role of general physical preparedness and conditioning is in a developing powerlifter? Because we actually had a video recently regarding cardio, and like we were talking about how our cardio is just shit. And like a big part of the reason we want to have good cardio is just to live a healthy life, right? Like just live a healthy lifestyle. But do you think there are benefits to conditioning and GPP like in a developing powerlifter?
Yes, up to a point. You know, there's definitely a point of diminishing returns for that. So developing it a little bit is going to help you with recovery between sets and recovery between workouts. Taking it beyond that is not a good use of your training time, and you're expending training resources on something that's not making you better. You know, so it's going to help up to a point, and then it's not going to help it.
Yeah, you need to know like when too much is too much. Like it's not like we're running on a treadmill for an hour type thing, you know?
Yeah. So there's that, and there's definitely some protocols that you can do. So, like for example, we do some density training where, say, take any movement. You know, you can do overhead press, you can do trap bar deadlift, any movement, and put a certain weight on the bar. Let's say a 12 rep max. Or something like that, and do as many total repetitions as possible in 12 minutes. You know, so your first set you might do 8, and then you rest for 30 seconds or a minute, and then you do 8 again, and then you rest for, you know, and this goes on for 12 minutes. You know, you're obviously putting the bar down between sets, but you try to get as many total reps as possible in a short amount of time. That's a very specific way of developing work capacity. You know. Not every way needs to be that specific, but that's one way to do it so that you get some good transference.
Yeah, like there's different forms of cardio depending on what your goals are, right?
Yeah. That one's nice too because you get a nice hypertrophy effect too because there's plenty of training involved.
Well, yeah, like I said, we all want to be bodybuilders. So, okay, so what's your favorite piece of advice for a beginner lifter like myself and like my brothers?
Beginner lifter. Pay attention to the things you learn, I suppose. You know, one thing that I see is people feel like they need permission to act on the things that they've learned. You know, so just a hypothetical because I can't think of a great example right now, but like a lifter, you know, they notice that every time they do, you know, this certain program that has a bunch of training volume, let's say, they set a bench PR. You know, so they might ask somebody like me, like, well, do you think I should do more training volume? Well, yeah, absolutely. Like, this is an observation that you've made. It's the best kind of training information that you can get because it's specific to you. It's an observation you've made about your own results, you know, so absolutely act on that. You don't need anybody's permission to do that, you know. If you notice that, you know, things go really well when you end your training cycle on triples and you're doing this other program, but it doesn't end with triples, and you want to change it, well, that's your program. You can change it if you want.
You don't need to ask reassurance.
Yeah. And now, if you do that and it blows up in your face, then don't blame the original program, of course. I mean, but I think that's fairly obvious.
Well, then you learn from your mistakes, right?
Yeah, and you absolutely should do that. But yeah, just being confident enough to take charge of your own training. I think it's okay to do that, and you should do that. Yeah.
So something we talked about during the seminar, I already asked you, but for the viewers, so I've been running Jim Wendler's 531 for almost a year now, and like you're obviously familiar with this program. Like it's known to be the simplest, most effective program for beginner lifters, and so like every month I've added 10 pounds to my squat, 10 pounds to my deadlift, 5 pounds to my bench, 5 pounds to my overhead press, and some months like even more than that, and I'm still progressing and I haven't plateaued. Should I continue to do this program until I plateau, or should I say, you know what, I'm going to try something new and maybe try this RPE thing? Or should I keep going till I stop progressing? In
general, I would say it's a good idea to keep going. It's a good idea to ride those waves when you can. You know. So we also talked about more from a coaching perspective how it's about a balance between results and enjoyment. You know. So if you're getting results but it's just mind numbing and you can't take it anymore, then change it. You know, but if you're doing fine and you can hang in there, then man, ride that wave while you can. Because look, this is a long road. This is something I want to do for the rest of my life. Right? Absolutely. You know, so there's going to be times where you'll need to spice it up. You know, reach in the bag of tricks and find something else. You know, so let's not reach for that stuff too early. And I think it's really smart the way that you're working this out. You're not pushing the volume too early. You're not reaching for too much complexity too early. The only other piece of advice I would say is don't be too reluctant to change. You know, when you see those things, you know, level off, and they will eventually, then change it. I just have to accept that I'm going to plateau eventually, right? You know, and that's okay. But when that happens, then you change it. So maybe a contrary example to what I'm saying here, because this is all about solving paradoxes, right? Like that's the underlying problem. You know, you got to work hard but not too hard. You know, like it's all this balance stuff. So we know that you need to increase your volume as your career goes on. You need to do more work, and eventually that ends up being adding more workouts until you just kind of can't tolerate them anymore. Which for a lot of people, especially well-trained people, is going to be 5 or 6 workouts a week. You know, sometimes more than that. For myself, I've noticed a reluctance to kind of reach for those things, kind of that stubbornness I was telling you about, like, I want to try this other thing and I think I can still make it work on 4 days a week. Well, don't be like that. You know, don't be too reluctant to reach for the new thing, but ride the wave as long as you can, but just when the wave is over, then it's over. And then you can and that's the thing with the Wendler is like, I actually can't believe this is still going. I can't believe it. So I deadlifted 500 pounds 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago or something. And I started deadlifting a year ago and my max deadlift was 355. And obviously there are a lot of factors that go into like why I've gotten to 500, but like I just can't even believe it's still moving. I never thought I'd be able to stick on this program, like keep going up so fast. But I guess that's just part of being young. And to some extent for sure, and kind of being you know, that lower training age for sure. But you know, some people are just really adaptable too. You know, like I talked during the seminar about one of my lifters, Bryce Krawczyk, and how he's such an adaptable lifter. Like you give people a new training strategy and they adapt for a while and then it stops working. So you use a new training strategy, they adapt for a while and it stops working. With Bryce, he just keeps adapting for a long time. And I mean, eventually it stops, but it stops for everybody. But his adaptability is so large, you know? So, I mean, maybe that's you too. You know, maybe you get a lot out of a single training strategy, which that's a great thing to have because it gives you a lot of longevity. You have a lot of tricks still in the bag, you know? You're not having to scrape really deep to figure out. I feel like I'm like the weight that I lift on this program, it's relatively heavy for me, but I feel like I honestly don't have to do that much. Like I'll come in here and I'll hit 3 sets and I'll leave.
and then I'm making progress. And like to me that.
Half an hour is the best half an hour.
My camera's a piece of shit.
So where's the next stop for you?
These were the most important questions.
I'm going home on Monday, but then we've got a seminar later this month in the UK, and then another one in Italy, kind of the first weekend of December.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're living in, you said you're not living in North Dakota anymore, hey? You moved to Colorado?
Yeah, I live in Colorado these days.
You liking that?
Yeah, it's good.
Colorado's got like good gym culture, it seems like, hey?
Yeah.
Like, it seems like with like, I guess Brian Shaw lives there and everything too.
Yeah, I haven't run into him yet.
Yeah.
You know, especially in Denver, getting to be in Colorado Springs where I live now too. Josh Hydup lives down there now. And,
Okay.
yeah, Bryce Lewis lives in Denver, and Dan Gaudreau and his gym, and like they've got a strong powerlifting culture in Denver. You know, so that's good.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's crazy how much it's growing in the States. Like, especially with like USPA kind of moving into North Dakota was awesome because I wanted to get a meet in and everything, and I like their federation too. Like, obviously it's not drug tested, but I don't really care. Like, it's right now in my career, it's for pilot progress, so I don't care about that. But, yeah, so it's a good time.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's going to be better than like we didn't have hardly any of that before.
Yeah, no,
It was like one meet a year.
Yeah. It seems like what are your opinions on like what are the kind of top federations now in the States, like USPA, USAPL? It seems like there's like so many.
USAPL and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get into that stuff too much, but there's USAPL, and then past that, I think everything kind of falls off really hard.
No, that makes sense.
Like the USAPL membership is far and away above what everyone else's membership is. And I mean, I've not been to a USPA meet, so I guess I can't speak intelligently on that.
Oh, I agree that USAPL seems to be the much more organized. Like, I think like IPF Worlds are like the closest thing to like an official, like proper like world championship that they have right now. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, well, we'll get the thanks here because it stopped recording at the end there. Yeah, but hey, we got a lot of really good shit on there.
Good.
So thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, man.
It was awesome to meet you, and I'll obviously see you again someday.
Yeah,
Right?
I hope so. But yeah, good chatting with you.
Awesome, man. What do you got to say to the YouTube, Mike?
I don't know. I don't know any YouTubes.